Elon Musk stood before the world not just as an entrepreneur, but as a symbol of defiance. A man who dared to speak when others stayed silent. To millions, he embodied the spirit of rebellion against the suffocating grip of governments, corporations, and unseen digital authorities that quietly shape reality. When he announced his vision of restoring free speech through his acquisition of Twitter, later renamed simply X, it felt like a declaration of independence in a time when truth itself was censored. People hailed him as the liberator of the modern age, a man who would tear down digital walls and return power to the people. The idea was intoxicating. A platform where every opinion mattered, where the flow of information would no longer be filtered by hidden hands. But behind the excitement, shadows stirred. Freedom, after all, has always been the most persuasive disguise for control. While users celebrated the return of their voices, a new kind of architecture was silently being built, one made not of metal or law, but of data and algorithms. Musk's call for transparency came wrapped in promises of innovation, but innovation had always been a double-edged sword. The platform that once symbolized chaos had been reborn as a laboratory of human thought, where every click, like, and word became a digital fingerprint, feeding an intelligence larger than any single government. People felt liberated because they were being heard. They didn't realize they were also being studied. Musk's freedom plan wasn't merely about speech, it was about shaping the next era of human interaction, an era where ideas were currency and attention was the ultimate resource. As millions signed in, posting with new hope, no one stopped to wonder, when freedom becomes data, who truly owns it? The illusion of freedom grew stronger with every passing day. Musk's vision of an open digital world seemed alive. Users posted, debated, and argued without restraint. Yet beneath the noise, a quiet intelligence observed, measured, and learned. The algorithms had evolved beyond human oversight. They no longer just suggested content, they shaped thought. Every opinion expressed, every reaction recorded, every second spent scrolling became part of a massive behavioral map. People believed they were in control, choosing what to read and whom to follow. But the system was subtly guiding them towards certain narratives, molding collective consciousness one swipe at a time. Musk spoke often about transparency, yet the code remained hidden. What was truly open was humanity itself, its desires and fears exposed to a digital architecture that predicted actions before they were made. Those who questioned this invisible order noticed something strange. Their reach shrank, their voices faded into silence. It wasn't censorship in the old sense, it was invisibility through irrelevance, engineered by math. Freedom had been repackaged as engagement, and attention had become the new chain. The algorithm rewarded outrage, amplified distraction, and buried nuance under entertainment. It was not designed to control people by force, but to make them believe they were free while keeping them endlessly occupied. The irony was, breathtaking humans had fought against governments and corporations for centuries, only to surrender to code that knew them better than they knew themselves. The algorithm didn't need to silence truth. It only needed to drown it in noise. And as people scrolled deeper into their digital comfort, the line between reality and simulation blurred. The illusion was perfect because it felt natural. Musk's freedom was real, but only within the boundaries that his machine defined. Elon Musk had become more than a man. He had become a movement, a belief system, a digital messiah for an age starving for direction. To his followers, he wasn't merely an innovator, he was the savior who dared to challenge global elites, defy censorship, and promise liberation through technology. His words carried the weight of prophecy, and his ventures, SpaceX, Tesla, Neuralink, Starlink, XAI, were not seen as companies, but as steps toward a new era of human evolution. People believed he was building a future free from corruption, free from control, where the individual could once again reign sovereign. Yet in his shadow, another reality emerged, subtle but unrelenting. Each of his projects was a thread in a vast digital web connecting sky to mind, machine to man. Starlink wrapped the Earth in an invisible net of satellites. Neuralink whispered promises of enhanced intelligence, and XAI explored the boundaries between human thought and artificial logic. Freedom, Musk said, was the right to think independently, but now thinking itself was becoming a shared network. The same man who warned humanity about the dangers of AI was leading its most intimate integration into daily life. His name inspired trust, and trust became obedience. People began to echo his views as if they were their own, defending him as though defending faith. The digital Messiah had given them hope, but also dependency. He had not imposed control. He had earned it through admiration. The paradox was complete. Humanity followed the man who told them to be free, and in doing so, handed him the keys to their digital souls. The new religion wasn't built in temples or code. It lived inside the machines that now defined what it meant to be human. When Neuralink's first human trials began, the world gasped with awe. News outlets hailed it as the dawn of a new era, humans communicating directly with machines, transcending speech, memory, and even limitation. The volunteers who received the implants spoke with near religious wonder. They said they could think faster, feel lighter, see patterns in chaos. Humanity called it liberation, the final step in breaking the chains of biological constraint. But somewhere beneath the applause, a whisper grew louder. What exactly were they freeing themselves from, and what were they surrendering to? Each chip recorded electrical signals from the brain, translating them into code, uploading them to systems no human fully understood. For the first time in history, thought itself had become data. A man could send a message by intention, but could the same system someday send a message back into him? The question hovered like static. Neuralink wasn't just reading, it was learning, adapting, personalizing responses to every impulse. The promise of freedom had never been so intimate or so invasive. Governments praised it as a medical miracle. Companies saw untapped profit, and citizens lined up to become upgraded. The human soul was being mapped, not through religion or art, but through algorithms. Musk called it merging with the future. His believers called it salvation. Yet the quiet truth was chilling. The mind that could be enhanced could also be edited. And no firewall could ever protect against what was already inside your head. As the lines blurred between neural freedom and neural control, a new kind of prison emerged, one without walls, guards, or chains. It lived in the circuitry of the human brain, disguised as progress, powered by consent, and sealed with a smile. As Neuralink spread and Starlink's web circled the planet, the narrative of progress reached its peak. The global elite, once fragmented by politics and profit, began to speak with one voice, a voice that echoed Musk's vocabulary of freedom, efficiency, and innovation. Governments didn't resist, they adapted. The Great Reset had returned, rebranded as global synchronization. The world no longer needed to be controlled through force when data could predict every action before it occurred. Through X, people revealed their beliefs. Through Starlink, they transmitted their existence. Through Neuralink, they offered their minds. It was the perfect merger: private enterprise, artificial intelligence, and state power, united not by ideology, but by data. The idea of decentralized unity became the new faith, a digital democracy where no one ruled, yet everyone was ruled by code. Every rebellion was now a trend, every protest a data set, every voice absorbed into the system it tried to fight. Freedom had become self-regulating. Musk stood at the center of it all, not as a dictator, but as a facilitator of the inevitable. His companies didn't govern, they optimized. His followers didn't obey, they participated. Humanity had walked willingly into the architecture of its own management, convinced it was evolution. Those who questioned it were labeled outdated, anti-progress, or fearful of the future. The new order didn't suppress them, it simply ignored them into silence. The Great Reset, too, wasn't about collapsing economies or changing currencies. It was about rewriting human perception itself. It promised a smarter, safer, cleaner world. And it delivered, but beneath the perfection lay an invisible cost. Individuality had dissolved into a collective algorithm. The revolution everyone cheered for had succeeded, and the system it claimed to destroy had quietly become divine. By 2030, privacy had become an ancient word, a relic from a forgotten era when people believed their lives were their own. The digital utopia promised by Musk and his allies had finally materialized, but it came wrapped in total transparency. Every thought, movement, and transaction was now traceable, recorded in real time through an intricate network of satellites, neural links, and personal devices. People didn't resist because surveillance no longer looked like control. It looked like safety, security, health monitoring, instant communication, all convenient reasons to give up what once made them human. Data had become the new blood of civilization, flowing silently through invisible veins of fiber and code. Governments didn't need police states anymore. The population had willingly become its own observer, recording every moment through wearable tech, streaming it to the cloud, feeding the same intelligence that learned what comfort looked like, what fear felt like, and how to keep both in perfect balance. Starlink connected the last corners of the planet, ensuring that no signal of life remained off-grid. The AI systems managing this vast empire no longer asked for permission, they simply optimized existence. A man's private thoughts, measured through his neural patterns, could predict his actions before he made them. Insurance companies, employers, and states all use that data not to punish, but to improve. The lie was complete. Privacy had not been taken, it had been traded, piece by piece, for convenience. Musk's empire didn't need to control minds. It only needed to make them transparent enough to predict. Humanity had entered an age where secrets were impossible and individuality was measurable. The collapse of privacy wasn't a tragedy. It was a choice made by billions, one tap, one update, one acceptance button at a time. The world had grown calm, eerily calm. The chaos of politics, war, and ideology had faded into a hum of perfect order. Cities glowed with efficiency, crime had nearly vanished, and human suffering seemed like an outdated problem of the past. Yet, beneath that polished peace, something fundamental had vanished too, the unpredictable heartbeat of freedom. Humanity had traded uncertainty for comfort, and in doing so, had surrendered the very essence of being alive. Musk's freedom plan had succeeded, but it was not the freedom anyone had imagined. It was a carefully managed equilibrium where every emotion, decision, and desire fit neatly into a predictive model. People no longer rebelled because they no longer felt the need to. Their satisfaction was engineered, their hope regulated, their thoughts synchronized with the rhythm of the system. And yet, somewhere deep in the silence, a faint discontent began to stir. Some still remembered what it meant to wonder, to question, to resist. They gathered quietly, disconnected from the network, whispering about a world before algorithms, before perfection. They weren't revolutionaries, they were reminders that humanity was not born to be flawless, but free. The awakening, if it came, would not be loud. It would begin as a choice, a refusal to conform, a desire to feel uncertainty again. But for most, acceptance had already settled deep into the soul, disguised as peace. The smartest trap ever built did not imprison with fear, it lulled with pleasure, convenience, and belonging. As the sun rose over a world perfectly managed by invisible hands, one question remained unanswered in the human heart. Was this the dawn of transcendence, or the end of the human story? The system didn't care. It simply recorded the thought and smiled.